Hello and welcome to another episode of Rings of Power Breakdown. This is CinemaBigWaves. In the opening scene, Adar, like the elves before the start of the war, cast the Alfrin seeds. In a way, by doing this, he shows that he considers this land as his own. Here, we get to know a different aspect of Adar's personality, and it is interesting that he still believes in the tradition of elves. In the scene where Arondir gives Bronwyn the Alfrin seeds, he mentions elven tradition to plant these seeds before the war, and one of the Valar protects the seed. According to the book, Yawana is Aule's wife, who takes care of plants and seeds, so Adar still believes in Valar. In this episode, we finally see the intersection of storylines of Galadriel and Numenor with Arondir and Bronwyn. And finally, after 5 episodes, the battle scenes with a high dose of action begin, which shows off the power and expenses of the franchise. The confrontation sequence of the people of the south with the orcs are also quite attractively designed. In general, it can be said that we are facing an exciting part, but of course, although they look beautiful, they do not reach the glory of war scenes in Lord of the Rings. In this scene, where Numenorian army come to aid of the people of the Southland when Elendil is thrown from his horse by orcs and Isildur goes to help him, the shot is reminiscent of the opening sequence of Lord of the Rings trilogy, where Elendil dies and Isildur comes over with a broken sword and cuts Sauron's finger and takes the ring from his hand. When Galadriel and Halbrand catch Adar in a relatively long and somehow attractive chase, and Halbrand is standing over Adar's head, Adar asks him,
"Did I cause someone you love pain? A woman? Perhaps a child?"
Eat your tongue.
We notice the hatred between Adar and Halbrand. Further, when Adar is imprisoned and sees Halbrand, he asks him,
"Who are you?"
Here, Halbrand does not give any answer, and this strange silence of Halbrand can strengthen the possibility of Halbrand being Sauron. Although it's still unlikely, I still don't fully trust Halbrand. Well, let's go to the important sequence of conversation between Galadriel and Adar. Here we notice that unlike the negative characters in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Adar is the first negative character who seems to still have believable emotions. Because he's worried about orcs, he fights to save the orcs he saved from Sauron and has a different opinion about orcs. Adar calls orcs Uruk and believes they have hearts and deserve a homeland. This name has already been used in trilogy, when Saruman creates different orcs from the orcs of Mordor and calls them Uruk-hai.
By fighting Uruk-hai.
Based on these cases, it can be concluded that Adar is not Sauron's ally and seems to be his enemy. Next, Adar tells Galadriel that he killed Sauron and cut him in half.
I split him open. I killed Sauron.
But Sauron is alive in this era and probably somewhere he is plotting. The point here is that although it is not possible for Adar to have killed Sauron, it is very likely that they got into a fight and Adar hit Sauron and took his glove off his hand. Adar believes that all creatures belong to Ilúvatar, the only god, so it can be said that he does not believe in Morgoth and does not consider himself a servant of Morgoth or Sauron. Galadriel calls Adar Moriondor.
The Moriondor, the sons of the dark.
At the beginning of Arda, when the firstborn or the elves set foot in the land of Arda, in darkness where there is a small group of elves, they would be separated from the rest and disappear. They are called Moriondor. It is interesting to know that in the wars of the first era after Moriondor, many elves, especially the elves of Beleriand land, were captured by Morgoth in Angband. They were tortured by Morgoth until they became orcs.
When I was a child, I heard stories of elves taken by Morgoth. Tortured. Twisted.
It seems that Adar hasn't been tortured enough to turn into an orc in general, and maybe that's why he doesn't seem so evil. The reason for Adar's hatred of Sauron is the same torture Sauron gave to the orcs, and now Adar wants to build a promised land for the orcs so that they can rest in peace. Adar continues his conversation and tells Galadriel that Sauron is looking for power, not from the flesh of the body, but the power to dominate the flesh, which is probably the initial and raw idea of what the Rings of Power is based on later, and through it, Sauron dominates the people who have the 9 rings or the Nazgul. Here, we see that Galadriel speaks violently to Adar, and Adar reminds her that the darkness of Morgoth has penetrated inside her. We know that Galadriel is still fighting with the dark side of her even until the Third Age, when Frodo goes to her. However, in the end, she wins and goes to Valinor. In the last sequence, according to the map of Middle-earth, where we are is the future Mordor, and the volcano that is activated is the Mountain of the Doom, where the ruling ring is made by Sauron and it will be destroyed later. In this episode, we saw the formation of the Land of Mordor. So, what's your opinion about this episode? Did you enjoy the action scenes? Do you think we are about to meet Sauron? Tell us in the comment section. And as always, thank you for being with us.